Good evening and welcome to Spooky Tales with Steve the Cat, your place for a fun conversation about horror movies. I am your host, Steve the Cat. It is Monday evening. It is December the 9th. It is 10 p.m. here on the East Coast, and it is time to start the show. On behalf of the entire cast and crew here at Spooky Tales with Steve the Cat, thank you so much for joining us. We're glad to have you here. We are coming to you live through the power of the internet. We are live on YouTube. We are live on Facebook. We are live on X. We are live on Twitch. We can, of course, catch replays of, if you missed the live broadcast, you can catch replays on any of those platforms. You can also catch full episodes uploaded to Rumble after the live watch party. So no matter what your platform of preference happens to be, we've got you covered. So for those of you who are new to the show, just quick words of wisdom for you. The show itself is pre-recorded. Spooky Tales with Steve the Cat is an animated show. We do not have Disney money here. We do not do live real-time animation. So we have to do a pre-recorded show, but I am speaking to you live now, and we premiere a live recorded broadcast to allow you to interact in the comments. We have what we call a live watch party. You can see over here on the right side of the screen, you can see the comments that are popping up. So feel free to join in and comment. We're glad to have you here. Just be respectful of the people here around you, but enjoy the live watch party. Now, before we get started, I have to say that Spooky Tales with Steve the Cat is brought to you exclusively through the PBDC Collective Incorporated, your nightly heartbeat of horror, your place for cool content for nonconformists. Whether you're interested in true crime, creepy stories, horror movies, weird history, unexplained events, or interviews with your favorite haunt actors, you're sure to find a broadcast of interest on the PBDC Collective Incorporated, and you can find us just about anywhere. You can find us on the web at psychobunnydc.com. You can find us on YouTube. You can find us on Facebook. You can find us on Rumble, X, and Twitch. You can find us on Instagram and Discord. You can find us on Patreon, and you can find us on Locals. So whatever your platform of choice happens to be, stop on by, check us out. Be sure to like and share and hit that subscribe button. Now, before we get into tonight's show, just a quick recap of where we've been this season so far. Tonight is episode 0706, which means season 7, episode number 6. Yes, we have done 7 seasons of this show. We're now 6 episodes in. Episode 1, we did a film called The Third Saturday in October. The less said about that movie, the better. It was not a good movie. It was an intentionally bad movie, intentionally made to look like a bad horror movie from the 1970s, and they succeeded. Whether or not that is something that they should succeed at, I'll leave that up to the audience to decide. 2 weeks after that, we watched an 80s creature feature called The Brain. Things were a little better there. Then we, 2 weeks later, saw a good one called Clown. This is a really chilling film produced by Eli Roth, not directed by Eli Roth, but produced by Eli Roth. Really brutally violent and dark and disturbing film. 2 weeks after that, we changed things up a bit. We did something fun called Benny Loves You, about a murderous animated plush toy. Then 2 weeks ago, we talked about a film called The Funhouse Massacre, kind of a straight-up slasher film with an explosive body count. Good but not great film. Tonight, we're talking about a very good film. We're talking about something called Jennifer's Body. Jennifer's Body starring Megan Fox and Amanda Seyfried. This is a good one. Well written, well directed, well acted. Good movie all around. So we're going to get the broadcast going now. So thank you for joining us. Now we're going to press the magic button and get the broadcast going. Thank you, everybody. Enjoy. Hello and welcome to Spooky Tales with Steve the Cat, your place for a fun conversation about horror movies. Tonight, we talk about a horror comedy that's full of witty dialogue and ultimately is a lot of fun. We'll talk about that film, plus we'll talk about a pair of additional films, one worth watching and one not so much, in other stuff I watched this week. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. We're glad to have you here. Now pour yourself a drink and sit back, because here we go.
I wasn't always this cracked. I used to be normal. Well, as normal as any girl under the influence of teenage hormones.
Guess who's got the whip until 11:30? A 2003 Chrysler Sebring, and it's all mine.
We have all the power, don't you know that these are like smart bombs, okay? You point them in the right direction and shit gets real.
People died, Jennifer. It's like all over the news. National news.
Anybody that we know?
We know everyone.
Well, you're gonna see your buddy really soon.
What, you mean like in heaven someday?
Nope.
I mean, that's just crass, right? Crass. It means greedy.
And I thought that maybe you'd like to go see a movie or something. There's a midnight showing of Rocky Horror at the Bijou next weekend.
I don't like boxing movies.
So I did some research. Paranormal research.
We're in league with the beast now, and we have to make a really big impression on him. And to do that, we're going to have to butcher you. And bleach you.
And then Dirk here is gonna wear your face. Relax, I'm kidding about the face. The rest is gonna happen though.
All right, it's time for our featured film review for the evening. Tonight we are talking about a film called Jennifer's Body. Yes, Jennifer's Body. Jennifer's Body is a horror comedy that was released in the year 2009. I found it on Tubi, free with ads. It was directed by Karen Kusama, and the cast includes Megan Fox and Amanda Seyfried. Let's talk about setting your expectations for this film. If you're going to sit down and watch Jennifer's Body, what you should expect is a very entertaining comedy horror film about a case of demonic possession that also explores the relationship between two best friends. If you like The Exorcist, you'll probably like Jennifer's Body, or if you liked the film Inner Demons that we reviewed a while back, you'll probably like Jennifer's Body, although Jennifer's Body has more comedic flair than The Exorcist or Inner Demons. Let's get into calibrating your sights for this film. This is the scale we like to use. On the far left side of the scale, we have very campy films, such as Jason X. On the far right side of the scale, we have very serious films, such as The Silence of the Lambs. As always, this scale is not intended to relay the quality of the film, but it's intended to indicate what your mindset needs to be going into the film if you're going to enjoy it. In the case of Jennifer's Body, it's very much a mainstream theatrical release. It is pretty much down the center. I've put it a little to the campy side of the spectrum just because it is a comedy after all. The comedy comes mainly from very sharp, witty, clever dialogue in the film, more so than clever antics or physical humor. But put it a little on the campy side just because it is a bit of a comedy at the end of the day. Now, before we go any farther, we need to do our vocabulary lesson. This, of course, is the part of the show where we discuss new and innovative words and phrases in an effort to stay ahead of social media bots and algorithms that would otherwise try to ban our conversation. Social media is a minefield. If you say the wrong thing, you get yourself banned. So, to stay ahead of this, we have our vocabulary lesson where we invent new and creative language. Our first term for this evening is enfuegoinating. Enfuegoinating is the action of setting a character ablaze. Now, if you've not heard the term enfuegoinating, perhaps you've heard one of the colloquial forms, which include baked Alaska-ing and Richard Pryoring. Yes, the writer of this show goes back a long ways for that Richard Pryoring reference. You youngsters might not get that one, but I digress. Our other term for the evening is blowing groceries. Blowing groceries is simply to vomit in a projectile manner. That's it. So please keep these terms in mind. They will become important later in the episode. So let's get into a film summary of Jennifer's Body. In this film, Anita "Needy" Lesnitsky has been best friends with Jennifer Check since childhood. This is even though the two seem to have very little in common, with Needy being a bit of a nerd and Jennifer being a gorgeous flag spinner on the color guard. Jennifer convinces Needy to go to see a band at the local watering hole, but the bar catches fire and burns down during the show. Yes, the only watering hole in town where all the high schoolers are to see this band catches fire and burns down with people inside. In shock from the fire, Jennifer leaves the scene of the fire with the band despite Needy's objections. Yes, Jennifer makes the seminal mistake. She gets in the creepy van with the band. Don't ever get in the creepy van, people. So Jennifer gets in the creepy van and rides away with the band, and Needy doesn't know what's going to happen to her. Afterwards, Jennifer's personality changes, becoming aloof about the fire and almost predatory towards boys. What happened to her during the time she spent with the band? And that brings us to our villain profile for the evening. Our villain for the film is Jennifer. Yes, Jennifer Check is our villain. Here you see her played by the gorgeous Megan Fox. Jennifer is of the class of demonically possessed super hottie. Her special powers include strength, plus she has fangs, she has the ability to fly or at least levitate, and she is almost irresistible to men. As far as signature weapon goes, she doesn't use weapons. Jennifer devours her prey with a mouthful of pointy fangs, with a mouthful of nasty big pointy teeth, as has been said by Monty Python. So that is our villain for this film. That is Jennifer. So let's talk about the things I liked about this film. Right off the bat, I will say this is a very entertaining and well-made film. I liked this film a lot. The writing is sharp and the dialogue is clever. The production values are excellent. This looks like a big budget release. This does not look like a cheap film. It looks good on screen. The practical special effects are very effective, and the use of computer graphics is kept to a reasonable level. It's not zero, but they did have to do some computer graphics in this film, but it's not overwhelming. It's not so much that it stands out and makes the film seem cheesy. The kills in this film are absolutely brutal. They're not necessarily shown straight up. They're shown in silhouette with shadows against the wall instead of the actual killing, but the kills are just brutal. The cast is excellent. and there is a well-developed relationship between Needy and Jennifer. Now let's talk about some of the things that could be better about this film. This is not necessarily things I took issue with. This is things that some people might take issue with the film. And right off the bat, the kill count is low and the pacing of the film favors character development versus straight up horror. The story is focused on the relationship between Needy and Jennifer more so than kill count. So when we get to the scorecard, you're going to see it's a relatively low score for this film. It's focused more on character development and more on relationship development between Needy and Jennifer. If you're looking for just a straight up horror movie, that might not be what you are after, but if you give it a chance, this is a very good film. I recommend it highly. But if you're just in the mood for kill count, this might not scratch the itch. The clever dialogue can become a little too much at times. It can become a little bit of overload. The story is a bit predictable, as most horror movies are. They become predictable once you've got the gist of what's going on. And finally, this is just something that stuck out to me. There is an unrealistic lack of police involvement in the various events that occur. Usually in a film like this, you have a police detective that is sniffing around the main characters. You have none of that in this film. The police seem almost to be not present at all during this film. So let's get to Steve's scorecard for this film. Right off the bat, we have kills. I counted 5, plus more below. What is more below? Well, we have mass casualty events. We counted 1 of those, a bar fire and associated panic, so we have additional kills and deaths resulting as part of the mass casualty event. In addition to the 5 kills we have credited to Jennifer and various characters. Bare breasts. Drum roll please. Does Megan Fox show off her talents? No, there are none, but there is a bit of implied nudity in this film. Denoggening. Does anyone lose their head in this film? No, we had zero denoggenings. Infuegoinating. I counted 2 characters set ablaze in this film. Blowing groceries. I counted 2 incidents of projectile vomiting in this film. And finally, shish kebabbing. I counted 1 incident of shish kebabbing in this film. So as you see, the scorecard is pretty light for this one. As I've said, this film is more focused on character development and relationship development than straight up kills. So it's a little less of a score than you would get with a conventional horror film, but this film is definitely worth your time if you're willing to give it a try. But with your viewing of this film, you also get some bonus features, such as, I wasn't always this cracked, I used to be normal. You get a Chris Pratt sighting. Yes, an early Chris Pratt sighting at the beginning of the film. He has a small role in this film. I'm not even a backdoor virgin. That's part of the clever dialogue you get in this film. Fire in a crowded theater action. Don't get in the creepy van, people. I don't know how to say this other than to say it straight up. If you are coming across somebody in a creepy van, don't get in the creepy van. Jennifer gets in the creepy van and things go downhill for her from there. You get projectile vomiting action. You get predatory Megan Fox action. Megan Fox is just terrific in this movie. She looks almost like a shark on the hunt as she goes from scene to scene in this film. You get tongue searing action. You get PMS isn't real, Needy. It's just another example of some of the dialogue in this film. And finally, she's actually evil, not high school evil. More of the clever dialogue in this film describing Jennifer as actually evil, not high school evil. So Steve's final score for this film, I'm going to give it 3 paws out of 4. I liked this film a lot. I'm going to say it is a highly entertaining horror comedy that is worth your time. It substitutes character development and relationship exploration in place of a higher kill count, but is still brutal and scary when it needs to be. So it's a borderline 3.5 Paul movie. Definitely recommend that you see it. So that is Jennifer's Body, a horror comedy that is well worth your time. A little more focused on character and relationship than straight up kills and straight up scorecard, but still worth your time. That is our featured film review for the evening. That is Jennifer's Body. Thank you for listening. And now a word from our benevolent overlords at PBDC TV, your nightly heartbeat of horror.
Blazing skies, the world in flames, nuclear fire, unforgiving claims. I survived through the dust and ash, came back in time to give you a chance.
We have come to the end of another episode of Spooky Tales with Steve the Cat. But before we go, as is our tradition, we're going to take just a few minutes to talk about some of the other stuff Steve watched this week. Starting with this film right here, this is called In a Violent Nature. In a Violent Nature is a 2024 Canadian independent horror film that I found on Shudder. I do have a Shudder subscription, found this one on Shudder. In this film, a wooded portion of Ontario is haunted by the restless spirit of Johnny, a developmentally disabled boy who was accidentally killed as part of a prank. According to local legend, 2 different series of murders have been attributed to Johnny's restless spirit, occurring decades apart. So you can see where this is going. Years later, a group of friends are in the woods. They find an old locket in a fire tower and remove it, not knowing that this is the site of Johnny's death, and that the locket, which belonged to Johnny's mother, is there to keep his spirit at rest. So Johnny rises from the dead and begins killing off the group in search of the locket. Now this sounds pretty conventional, and it is pretty conventional, except for one important difference. In this film, the film tries something original and follows the killer for most of the film instead of the victims. So we see this film from the killer's perspective. We follow him around. You do overhear the campfire story telling the story of Johnny, but that's because the killer is standing there listening in on the group as they tell the campfire story. The only time you get any backstory from the group is when the killer is listening in on them. So that's kind of interesting. On the con side, it makes the pacing of the film a bit slow and ponderous. Following around the killer who, as your typical killer is, doesn't run, just kind of walks from one place to another, can be kind of time consuming. But overall, this film is worth watching if you are in the mood for a brutally violent slasher film, and it is brutally violent. There are some brutally violent kills in this film. What else did we watch this week? Well, we watched this film. This is called Dead Silence. Dead Silence is a 2007 supernatural horror film that I found on Tubi free with ads. You can find on other streaming services as well. In this film, Jamie and his wife Lisa receive an anonymous gift, a creepy ventriloquist doll. The doll is creepy, and while Jamie is out, his wife is murdered and her tongue is cut out. Suspected of the murder but free due to lack of evidence, Jamie returns to his hometown in search of the doll's origin, knowing that it has something to do with his wife's death. The doll is linked back to Mary Shaw, a deceased ventriloquist in Jamie's hometown who was lynched after being connected to the disappearance of a local boy. Mary Shaw's spirit is still restless, much like in the other film, and seeking revenge upon the families of those who lynched her. On the pro side, this film does create a spooky atmosphere. On the con side, the film is mind-numbingly dull and predictable. I have tried on 2 separate occasions to watch this film, and in neither case was I very successful. I ended up scrolling on my phone or playing games on my tablet as the film was going on. It just wasn't able to hold my interest. It just is not that interesting. It's pretty dull. This is James Wan's first follow-up to Saw from 2007. He went to make something more of a haunted house style of movie, something very different from Saw, and succeeded in making something different from Saw, but did not succeed in making an interesting film. Overall, the verdict is this is a snooze fest, and I recommend that you avoid it. So that is the other stuff Steve watched this week. In a Violent Nature, which I recommend if you can handle the brutal kills, and Dead Silence, which I recommend that you avoid. That is the other stuff Steve watched this week. Thank you very much for listening. We've reached the end of another episode of Spooky Tales with Steve the Cat. Thank you so much for joining us. We're glad you were able to drop by. If you did enjoy the show, then please check us out on social media. You can find Steve the Cat on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, or I believe they're calling it X now. So please stop by and hit that subscribe button. Spooky Tales with Steve the Cat is available exclusively through the PBDC Collective Incorporated, now legally incorporated, but still your heartbeat of horror. You can find us on the web at psychobunnydc.com, or you can check us out on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, Instagram, Twitter, Rumble, and Patreon. That wraps up the show for this week. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll be back again in 2 weeks with another all-new episode for you to enjoy. But for now, thank you for watching and have a great week. Good night, everybody. Well, that wraps up this episode of Spooky Tales with Steve the Cat. Thank you so much to those of you who joined in to the live watch party. I really enjoyed having you around. Thank you so much for stopping by. We got one more episode in this season before the end of 2024. We will be back in 2 weeks on December the 23rd. And drum roll, please, we will be reviewing a movie called Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey. So, if you've read about this one, if you've heard about this one, we're going to review it in a couple of weeks. So I found it free with ads on Pluto TV. I was about to shell out the money to actually rent this one, and then I found it for free. So double bonus. Not only did I get to see the movie, I didn't have to pay for it. So 2 weeks from now, we will be reviewing Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey. So that is December 23rd at 10 p.m. Eastern Time. Until then, thank you so much for stopping by, everybody. Have a great evening and happy holidays. We'll talk to you later.